Well, joining us right now is Don Yacktman, whose mutual funds owned about 2.5 million shares of Coke as of the end of the year. His $1.5 billion Yacktman fund ranking in the top 2% of its peers for 1 and 5 years. So a nice long-term performance there. Don, great to have you back on Street Smart. Good afternoon.
Good to be with you.
Listen, we're talking a lot about Coke today. That stock's having a nice move. It's up about 3 1/3% right now. You guys own a lot of it. What's your long-term view of this company?
Well, we like it long term. Otherwise, it wouldn't be that big of a position. It's one of our top 3 positions. I would not overread 1 quarter, but I think it just shows you the values there.
When you do this as a long-term play, Don, is it all about those emerging markets, China and India specifically?
Well, it's more than that, but clearly the unit growth is going to come from less developed markets where they have an enormous market share and unit growth is coming. So they're very important.
All right. Do they come soon enough to counteract the growth that they're not seeing or lack of growth that they're seeing in like the North American market?
Well, remember, North America represents less than 20% of the earnings. So, again, the foreign markets are far more important than Coke than is the domestic market. When
you look at this name, like you said, it's a long-term play for you, Don. I mean, what is, though, the one thing that they have to be very careful about in terms of managing that future outlook? Well,
this company is like a printing machine, and they just have to be sure that they continue to protect the brand and its reputation and all the things that go with that.
All right.
So they just run it 101, business 101, really.
Yeah. Let's also talk about the market, Don, because we mentioned earlier that you'd actually like to see the Dow fall another 20%. Really?
Sure. That's when you get bargains, and we're bargain hunters, as my son calls us, dumpster divers.
He's right. So what are you saying, that at this point everything's fairly valued?
That's an overstretch. I just think that the tremendous values that existed roughly a year ago are greatly diminished, and we look at compounded forward rates of return and quality, much like a bond buyer. And today, what's showing up is that the best values, relative values, are in the high quality businesses. So Coke, Pepsi, Pfizer, Procter & Gamble, Clorox, those kind of things.
My understanding is, too, that some of these names that you mentioned, Coke, Procter & Gamble, Viacom, and News Corp, that you also say they're particularly good inflation hedges. Can you talk about that, why they in particular play that way?
Well, I think they have the ability to raise prices, and I think inflation will come down the road. It's certainly been, we've had such a weak economy, it hasn't been able to rear its ugly head, but I think it is going to come continually. And they have the ability to reprice their products, and so they're very protective. I'd rather have Coke than gold.
You'd rather own Coke than gold. That's interesting. Let me also ask you a little bit more about Viacom, because they are going to be reporting their earnings on Thursday. What do you see as kind of, I'm assuming another long-term holding for you. What do you see as their long-term perspective here?
Well, what I like about Viacom is the fact that they have an enormous percentage of the cable network between Nickelodeon, MTV, and Comedy Central, and so they can demand from the Comcasts and Time Warners of the world raises in prices over time. They have the products that people want to watch.
Don, before you go, because this is something that's certainly been consuming us a lot as of late, and I know you look at individual situations, but let me ask you about the market's preoccupation, if you will, with what's going on in Greece and the sovereign debt outside the United States. I mean, is that a huge problem in your view? Because it certainly has been rattling investors.
Well, I think it's synonymous with the kind of problems that you're seeing in most of the developed world, where governments, in order to try to placate the citizenry, have overextended their obligations. And I think you're seeing the weak sisters in a weak environment are going to be the first ones to show stress.
All right, we're going to leave.
So I think it's a long-term concern.
A long-term concern. Okay, no doubt about that. Hey, Don, thank you so much. Good to get some time once again with you. Don Yacktman of Yacktman Asset Management, excuse me.